Welcome to Living from the Heart. I am your host, Tina Thrussell, light dancer, co-founder of Best You Can Be, and a definite messenger of the Shin Dao, the way of the heart. The way of the heart is living with kindness and compassion and love for yourself first, above all else, so that you can share that love and compassion with the world from your overflow. I'm thrilled today to have my guest, Pat Duckworth, live from the UK. I met Pat several years ago through the Evolutionary Business Council, and she's just a delightful soul. She's full of fun and love, and she definitely lives from her heart. She has a passion for helping women get the most out of their lives and has focused, I'd say a fairly good chunk of her focuses have been on helping women get through this whole menopausal, postmenopausal stage of life. And she's full of great ideas and information. And just before I bring her online, I'd like to point out the little scroller at the bottom of the screen. It's an invitation for you to receive Heart and Mind Matters, an inspirational uplift every other Tuesday morning. An article, YouTube video, quote of the week. So you can subscribe there. And for information about the Shin Dao philosophy, go to shindao.com. And now, without further ado, I am delighted to bring to you none other than Pat Duckworth. Hello,
Hi,
Pat.
Tina. Hi, Tina. It's really great to be talking to you.
It's great to have you here. What a delight. We have had the good fortune to be able to chat several times over the last, I would say 6 weeks. And I just enjoy your smiley face and the laughs that we have every time we chat.
Well, you know, one of my measures of success is this making me smile? If it's making me smile, whatever it is, it's a success.
Oh, what a great definition of success. I love it. Maybe we can maybe we can steal that and do an article on Heart and Mind Matters. Maybe you'd like to write something for us. I think that'd be great.
I'd love to, because I think sometimes that focus on success takes us to places that aren't happy places. And really, you know, in life, success should be around your happiness.
Absolutely. Yeah, success can become a head game. And as you and I know, living from the heart is far from a head game.
Yeah, and if, you know, when you get into metrics of success, you know, how much of this, how many of those, what next, and all the rest of it, if you could say, well, how many smiles did I have today? That would be a good measure.
And much simpler than tracking matrices.
And of course, governments are starting to get interested in this now. Governments are starting to talk about happiness indexes because of what they see happening in society with people getting depression and anxious and, you know, not performing well because they're just not happy. So I think we should do it at the micro level and start with our own smiles and laughter.
Absolutely. You know, you're right. We have to do everything from the micro level. When we talk about mindfulness and bringing peace into the world, it has to start with ourselves. It starts within.
Yeah, because it ripples out from there. You know, you smile at somebody, they're almost automatically going to smile back. It's almost a reflex. So your smile ripples to them. Perhaps they smile at the next person. I'm really interested in how things ripple outward, because even though you think, well, you know, my thank you to the person on the checkout in the supermarket, that just was between me and them. But that thank you might affect how they deal with the next person. And that person might drive home more carefully than they would have done if they were angry. And you may even have saved a life with your smile and your thank you. So it's very valuable.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you for pointing that out, Pat, because those kinds of things, when it's pointed out, we go, oh, yeah. But we don't necessarily consciously think about it.
Yeah, all those little things we do every day, and they can either accumulate into a bad thing or they can accumulate into lots of good things. I'd rather it went the good thing way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's like the gratitude practice. There are so many things that we take granted for. And if we're going to talk about happiness, there's probably fewer ways to get to happiness faster than to be grateful.
Yeah, I remember because I worked in corporate for a number of years. I worked in central government, and I worked right in the centre of London. And I was lucky to be in a building that was so big it had three inner courtyards, and one of them
Wow.
had some ginkgo biloba trees in it. And I came in one morning, and the ground covering was slate, blue slate, and a yellow ginkgo leaf had fallen on the slate, and there was this beautiful yellow against the blue of the slate. And I went up to my office, and I said to one of my team was sitting there. I said, "Come and have a look at this." And she was like, "Oh wow, what are we going to go and see?" And I took her down, and I showed her this leaf on the slate, and she said, "You've brought me down here to look at a dead leaf." And I said, "No, no, look at the colour." And she's like, "Okay, Pat." And she just walked away. And I thought, she really doesn't get it. This was a little moment of beauty.
Oh, yeah. Kind of make your heart break a little bit, right?
Well, I thought you can only share. And
Yeah, yeah. Bless those who can see those precious moments. I believe that the people who can see those precious little moments of beauty or those little moments of peace and calm are the people who are the happiest because we're the most present, right? And when you're here now, this is where joy happens in your life, right here and right now.
yeah, this is the only place it happens.
Exactly, exactly. And so being really present to those things and appreciative and grateful for those little moments makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, so I see clients in my therapy room, which is over my garage here, and I planted an acer tree, like a maple, a few years ago, and it has beautiful red leaves and red bark. And now the stairs up to my therapy room, it's almost like a tree house. You're almost walking through the tree. And of course, when people come to see me, because I'm a therapist, they come with their problems, and often they're really sunk in their problem. They're not present at all. They're just in their problem. And I take time to say to them, look at the tree. I don't do it in a, oh, look at the tree. I say, oh, come on up to my therapy room. Look at the lovely color of the tree. And then I go, oh, yeah, what a beautiful red. Is it always like that? And we start the conversation kind of coming back to now, and let's just appreciate the tree for a moment.
How beautiful. How beautiful. And it makes such a difference. I bet you, like I, see this huge shift from the time people walk into your room to the time they walk out. There's this lightness of being that happens, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that on the way out, they're already thinking about looking at the tree again rather than, oh, I better get back into my problem again. Let's just take a moment and enjoy the tree.
Yeah, yeah. So this is kind of an interesting aside. What kinds of problems do your clients typically come to you with?
So there's not a typically, people come to me with all sorts of things. So clients who are feeling very anxious or in low mood or with phobias, poor sleep. So as you know, my focus is on menopause and midlife, and all those things that I've just mentioned can come about in midlife and menopause. They can sneak up on you that, you were going along fine, and then along comes menopause and you start to not sleep so well. And then from poor sleep, you start to feel anxious, you get the brain fog, and then with that, the low mood sneaks in, perhaps losing a bit of confidence. So, you can have a whole range of things and you don't think of them as being menopause, or you're not sure they're related to sleep, but all of these things interact with each other.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, well down that road myself. Postmenopausal for many years now. And yeah, so many little symptoms. And you think, oh, I'm not sleeping well. Oh, I'm not eating well. Oh, I'm not. And they're all individual things. And you don't think to link them all together, that it's one big picture. But when you do, when you do, and you start to address the core of, well, for myself, it was a combination of some things, but definitely just slowing down and looking at how I looked at life was the biggest difference maker, I think.
Yeah, and having a positive attitude to this phase of life, because if you say the word menopause to women and say what's the first word that comes to mind, it's not going to be a happy word, okay? Even if they're not going through it, the words that they associate with it are generally negative. But it's just a phase of life. It's just a natural phase, like going from being a child to being a teenager. You know, it's just those hormonal changes. It's natural. It's going to happen. It's going to pass. You get to the next stage. But there is so much negativity around it, and just turning that round and saying, well, what are the benefits? What's going to be the other side? And I like to say, well, you know, I'm the other side of this gap, and I'm holding out my hand and saying, come over, you know, let me help you come over here. It's good this side.
So tell us, what's good about this side? What's good about being on the other side to give women who are in that change some hope? What do they got to look forward to?
Well, firstly, I think it's almost like a reboot for women. I've been seeing a homeopath recently about some allergy problems, and he said, you deal with menopause, don't you? And I said, yes. He said, I envy women menopause because you get another start. He said, men, we go through puberty and then it's all downhill. Women, you kind of get this other phase of your life. He said, I think that's really good. And I think, yeah, it is really good because, you know, that first phase of life, often it's focused on other people like family or partners, or, you know, you're giving a lot out. And then you get to this phase and you're over the reproductive stage of life. And now you can think, well, what else did I want to do? Or what have I always wanted to do, but I didn't have the time for it? And of course, you're then not tied with, you know, having all the things that go with being reproductive. So you're not worrying about contraception or having children or having regular periods or, you know, all the mood swings and everything that goes with that hormonal. You get to the other side and life is calmer. And I think for a lot of women, suddenly they've got more headspace to do the thing that they really wanted to do. And I find that women get more creative, get more entrepreneurial, start to do a lot of different things. And so I think it's really exciting.
Yes, I would have to agree. That's certainly been my experience. And when I observe the women around me, the women who have adjusted well and who have not fought it, because there's that phrase, what we resist persists.
Yeah.
If we go in kicking and screaming about the whole menopause thing and fighting it and thinking, like you said, it's mindset. If we're in this, oh, this is awful, I wish these hot flashes would stop. And if we're focused on all of that stuff, it really is an ugly time. And it can be tough on the men in the women's lives. Not to tell tales out of school, but I'll just say I know a woman who came to me and she said, I feel so sorry for my husband. I'm like, I'm fine one minute, the next minute I'm just like, at him, and I'm like, he didn't even do anything, but I can't help myself. And you know, then he on the side would say, wow, I don't know what's going on with her, but boy, it's like I feel like I'm a little raw on one side because she keeps ripping a strip off my hide.
And men are going through their own stuff as well. You know, if you're in a relationship with somebody the same age, then and it's a man, well, his hormones are going into decline as well. So the sort of things that we associate with women getting older, men have some of that too. So they're losing their hair, they're putting on weight around the middle. Perhaps they're not sleeping as well, not feeling as confident. Some men even get hot flushes. Yeah. So they're going through hormonal change as well. It's just not as drastic as what we go through. And it's about, you know, in relationships, both giving each other some space and some slack because all of this is going on. And, you know, there's certainly lots of evidence that people entering their 50s and into their 60s, their happiness, their levels of happiness start to go up. you know, they're going down into the 40s as you're kind of working really hard, trying to establish yourself, worrying about money, worrying about kids, worrying about getting older. And then you hit your mid 50s and suddenly you start to come out of it because you're thinking, hey, I've got this far. This is pretty good. And, you know, those happiness levels rise right the way up into the 70s. So, yeah, this isn't a miserable time. This is a time when you're established. You can take a breath and think, what did I really want to do? And then start looking at your smile quotient every day.
That is so beautiful. I love that. You know, every discussion I have with these beautiful people who are guests on Living from the Heart, I walk away with a gem. And I think that's my big gem for today, is that measure success by how many smiles you have in a day. I just so love that, Pat. It's great.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I changed my career was because I'd really stopped smiling. And, you know, I was, in terms of success, I was successful in that I'd got a team, I'd got my own office, I was a director in a big government department. Everything that I had worked for during those years when your happiness levels are going down, I'd achieved all that, and I should have been smiling a lot, but I was walking to work and I realized I was crying. Oh. Well, what is the point? You know, it is not success if you're walking to work crying, or if every Sunday night you're going, oh, I really don't want to go to work tomorrow. I really don't know what I'm facing. It's going to be, you know, what is the point? You've got to find a way out from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing I'm noticing with my guests, is that so many are recovering corporate. You know, I put that into parentheses, but it seems that just about everybody's done that whole corporate track and realized they've come to this place of being unhappy. And I think that's when the shift happens, when we stop living from the head and start living from the heart.
Yeah.
And we start to listen to that inner voice that says, what do I really want to do?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes, so I like to think about it that you can be kind of going along day to day, week to week, month to month, doing your work. And then the universe gives you a little tap. It kind of, you know, wake up. And, you know, my moment of walking through the park crying was the universe saying, come on now, wake up. And you can ignore that. You can ignore it. It's just a little tap. Honestly, you should listen to it, but you can ignore it if you want to. But the universe will come back, and then it will smack you a little bit harder. You know, perhaps you start not feeling so well, and then you start having time off work, and you think, what's going on? Sometimes the taps get really hard. You get hit around the head with something. Listen to the taps before you get the slap round the face. That is the most important message, because, you know, if the universe cares about you, and it will keep trying to send you messages, and you really don't want to get the really big punches.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's a fundamental difference in life too. Is who was it? I think it was Einstein who said, you have to fundamentally decide whether or not the universe is a friendly place.
Yeah.
And if you believe that the universe is a friendly place, then it always has your back. And yes, it will keep sending you those little messages because it wants you to do well. And if you just keep ignoring it, it starts to feel not so friendly when it becomes a big whack on the side of the head with a 2x4.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've interviewed a lot of people who've told you these stories about, you know, the day that they had an accident. You know, they realized they weren't happy, but it took the accident for them to turn around and do something, or suddenly they had a life-threatening illness, or their relationship broke up, or, you know, really big life events. And then they say, but I wouldn't change it for anything because I needed that in order to make the change. Well, it's much better if you can do something before it gets that serious. But, you know, as you say, sometimes the universe, because it loves you, is going to keep sending you the messages, and they're going to get stronger and stronger.
Yeah. So how did you get to be so wise that you listened at the first tap instead of waiting for the huge? Wow, that's awesome.
Because I had a lot of happy years working for government. You know, I developed my career. I met lots of really nice people. I developed myself. So I had a lot of really good years. And then I got into a position where it really just wasn't so much fun anymore, but I got used to the salary and, if you like, the prestige of being a director. And these things kind of feed the ego, and you think, I'm doing really well. You know, this is going good. But yeah, that feeling as I was walking to work and I was crying, I thought, no, I can't spend 2 hours a day traveling into work and then 2 hours traveling back home, plus the over 8 hours I'm spending in the office. And whether I'm fortunate or the universe again was very kind to me in gifting me a partner who turned around when I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. And he said, no, you can't. What are you going to do about it? So he didn't go, well, what are we going to do about the money? Or how are we going to manage this? He said, no, you've got to stop. So how are you going to do it?
Nice.
And so, yeah, that's important too, to have that kind of support, somebody who loves you enough to say, yeah, how are we going to sort this out?
Beautiful, beautiful. And now your passion is helping women figure out how to sort out what now, right? Where do I go? What do I do? How do I approach life so that I can have more smiles in my day?
Yeah, and that can start basically with the health side of it. So as a therapist, I help them to overcome the sleep problems or the anxiety or the lack of confidence. But then it's got to move on from there into so now who are you and who do you want to be? Because the other thing that happens at this midlife is this huge shift in identity. And that's what a lot of women grieve as they start to come up towards menopause, that they're no longer going to be like the fertility goddess or the sex goddess, however they saw themselves, whatever words they put to that. They're now transitioning into being this older, wiser woman. And there aren't lots of really good words for it, because if you use the word crone and wise woman, most women will go, oh, I don't really want that. So you've got to think about who you are, the other side of this. What is your identity? And from that, what does that mean in terms of how you live your life? What's important to you now? What beliefs do you have now? It's really aligning yourself strongly with this new identity. And from that comes all sorts of power and strength.
Nice, really nice. I am wanting to, I'm just noticing, my goodness, we're already at 9:24. Good, time is ticking by. So I want to let people know how to reach you. So I'm going to put your website up on screen, and it's, oh dear, Hot Women Cool
Solutions.
Solutions.com. Let's see if I got this right. Does that look right? Yes. Indeed. Oops, the
Yes.
.com is not showing. What happened? It's there. It's there on my screen.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
it's
there it is.
Up. It's scrolling upwards. And there are lots of free gifts on that website. So if you go to the right-hand side of that homepage, you can see a list of gifts there, things to help with sleep and with weight and relaxing, and also one from Hot Women Rock, which was the book I wrote about becoming a midlife entrepreneur. But it's really about making that midlife change. And there's a visualization there about getting yourself aligned, because in that alignment comes your authenticity and comes your strength.
Yes, alignment is so, so important. Body, mind, spirit, everything working in the same values, the same interests, the same, I don't want to say goals, because that turns into a head thing again, but yeah, alignment is really, really important.
Yeah, and as I say, because of the huge shift in identity that goes on at this phase of life, there's a whole new alignment to do. And that's where you can start to feel, that's why this is an uncomfortable period, because you're trying to work that out. Who am I? What do I want? What does it mean? What does it mean to my family? You know, there's a whole load of stuff to sort out. When you get to the other side of it and you're firm in that new identity, life becomes so much easier.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you know, as we're speaking and we have this focus about women, I keep thinking that this is true for men too. I bet the tips that are there would work just as well for the men, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And although Hot Women Rock followed on from Hot Women Cool Solutions, which is why it's about women, but the model that I use in it is exactly the same for men. It's about, you know, just this alignment. And, you know, for men getting to midlife, they start to move into a different identity as well. For some men, it will come later as they start to think about retiring, because they identify so strongly with the work that they do. The very idea of retiring and not having all of everything that surrounds who they are in their job can seem like a really big leap and can seem very negative. But of course, you know, it's open to them to become entrepreneurs or philanthropists or whatever has really big meaning to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my girlfriend's father, when he retired, he started painting. I mean, he'd never painted in his life, and he's a brilliant artist, absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it took that. He was confident enough to decide that he could redefine who he was, and it's been beautiful to watch that blossom. I mean, he's in his 80s and he's still cranking out beautiful paintings, so it's great.
Yeah, I'm not sure when I'll retire. I don't know. Retirement is almost like a superficial word these days, because we're generally in fairly good health as we head into our 60s and 70s. And so you don't really have to stop doing things. You just change the things you're doing and find what has meaning for you.
Yes, that is brilliantly said. It's not that we stop doing things, because when you stop doing things, that's when you get old and die. Let's be honest. But if you have a focus, if you have something to be passionate about, if you have some reason to wake up in the morning, so it's about changing what we do in this phase of life. And you've mentioned this, and I think it can't be emphasized enough, that it's about redefining who we are and what we do at this phase, so that there is still passionate living happening, no matter what age we're at.
Yeah, and I think the really important thing, my last tip of the day, is you've always got a choice between growth and contraction. And you can still be growing at this stage. You can still be developing. As soon as you come out of growth and you think, oh, well, I'll just sit with my feet up and read the paper, you're going into contraction. And that is the slow death. Once you start contracting and pulling inwards, you're starting to die. While you're still growing and developing new neural connections, you're living. You're living and developing, and that's where the juicy good stuff is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, golly, yep, we've got just like a minute and a half left. Wow. I was going to ask, is there any final gem? But you already summed that up really pretty well. But what can we tell people in the last minute and a half?
Well, just to think, you know, to stay in growth, what can you do that really lights you up? Go back to your joy. You know, whether it's creating, and you might think, oh, well, I've never painted, so I'm no good at it. Everybody can paint and get enjoyment out of it. Singing, you know, can I join a rock choir or something so that I can sing or dance? Or could I go and do some creative writing? Or could I go and help somebody in a charity? You know, it's what really lights you up. That's the thing to spend your time on.
Absolutely, absolutely. You are one wise and fun woman, Pat Duckworth. I love you to bits. I'm so grateful that you chose to be here on the show with us today. And I thank you. I invite our viewers to tune in again next week when Stephen Garrett will be on the show with me. And Stephen, in his phase of this section of his life, has decided to fulfill his passion of helping people die with dignity. And so it's interesting, we're talking about how to stay alive and stay passionate and stay growing. And ultimately, when the time comes, how do we pass with grace and ease? And so it'll be interesting to share some conversation with Stephen next week. Yeah. So again, thank you, Pat. I remind everyone to check out, whether you're a woman or a man, check out hotwomencoolsolutions.com for some great tools, tips, gifts there. And thank you again, Pat. And
thank you, Tina. It's been so much fun chatting with you.
Blessings. Ciao for now, everyone.